What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about my first impressions of Where Winds Meet, the overly ambitious free game available on basically every place known to man, except for Xbox because why not, I guess. It was previously a PC exclusive over in China, but now it's been brought to the rest of the world for us to enjoy. This game is listed as a wuxia style of game, and I had no idea what that meant, so I did a little research. Wuxia is a Chinese genre focused on martial arts heroes who live by a strict code of chivalry, set in a romanticized version of ancient China. The focus on martial arts almost lands in the area of the fantastical, with gravity-defying stunts and the manipulation of qi. These stories don't take place in our world, I believe. Rather, they are set in a world called the Jianghu, where martial artists and rival clans thrive. The heart of the genre is the idea of the Shia, which is about protecting the weak and upholding personal honor. While action is heightened and often seems superhuman, it's technically not overtly magical, which at times in this game I find hard to believe. This is just a little background, but learning some of these terms makes aspects of this game make much more sense. Like, I assumed the Jianghu was just a country where the game took place rather than actually China. I can't personally speak to how well this game accomplishes this. I have zero experience in this genre. The closest I can get is watching Dragon Ball because it hits a couple aspects of these, but is nowhere actually near this style of story. From what I can tell, the reason they decided to make this kind of game is because developers wanted to make a game that could resonate with the Chinese audience, and I really admire that. So many of the high-profile games in recent memory usually try to cater to an American or Japanese audience, so I'm glad to see some of these other regions get their games, and for one to be as high-profile too. I hope we get more spotlights on games that showcase different cultures and ways of life so that we can all learn more about each other. Especially in a style like this, which, as a concept, is really intriguing. It helps stand out in a field that's usually dominated by a couple of different styles of games. Getting into the actual game itself, the best thing I can give it right off the bat is that there haven't been any intrusive microtransactions, at least not that I've been able to experience. There's a lot of different types of currencies or resources in the game that I truly have no idea what to do with. I haven't needed to use any of them yet. The only one I can figure is buying customization items, which I really don't care about, so it hasn't made a big impact on me. The time I thought the game was really going to start shoving them on me was when I reached a story mission that told me I wasn't high enough level yet. I thought that since they were level walling missions, they were going to offer me some kind of XP consumable that would cut down on time, or maybe the pointless grind I would have to do just to be able to continue the next story mission. But that's not what they did, and I have to commend them on that. Not once while I was playing did they make me grind a certain resource to progress. There are a few times you might want to upgrade your weapons or armor, and you need to gather them for that. But just by playing, I tend to either run into them in the fields or I get them as rewards for quests, which is how a game should handle these. A big game like this being free really made me doubtful and suspicious about how they were going to make their money back, but so far it doesn't seem like they're going to try to scam innocent players. When the game first started, I was amazed by how decent the graphics looked for a free game to play on consoles. The character models were smooth and detailed, the lip syncing seemed to be accurate. I had the dub on and I assumed they were modeled to speak Chinese. Although I had no idea what was going on with these characters, it really felt like a drop you into the middle story type affair to try to instantly hook your attention with some flashy actions and some intriguing dialogue. Right after that, I was disappointed by how cheap everything felt. You start off riding on horseback down a linear trail trying to get away from some bad guys, and it's basically an on-rail section. You have no control over your horse, not even the slightest give of an illusion like Monster Hunter Wilds gives you in their intro. As you race through what you hope would be luscious greenery in a vibrant world, you're just looking at very basic grass textures they threw on the ground. I wasn't expecting the best visuals before I started the game because it's free. I know they had to cut corners somewhere. I can't expect $70 level of detail, but the marketing for the game and the opening cutscene got my hopes up, and I'm frankly a little crushed with how fast they dashed them. At least let me live in the delusion a little longer. It's not even just the environmental textures in the game. Some of the character models are the fakest I've seen in years. What I originally thought was just smooth complexion on the intro characters can turn into a plastic sheen on a doll of a person. I just want to be interested in her story, but it makes it a little hard when she looks like she should be in the clearance aisle at my local Target. It doesn't even stop at the textures of the characters. Sometimes it even goes into the character designs. Look at this guy. Why is he staring at me like that? Who are you? But that isn't something that's obvious at the start of the game. What is obvious is how lackluster the combat in this game feels. Right after the underwhelming on-rail segment, we're thrown into a boss tutorial where we're given the lay of the land for the combat. And at first look, it seems to be fairly deep. You have your basic light and heavy attacks, and you have a side wheel with different special moves you can do. There's 4 weapon-specific ones, an additional 4 slots you have to deal some kind of skill or magical ability that you have unrelated to the current weapon. This makes it look like there's going to be a lot of variation in the combat, and you can customize different loadouts to fit your playstyle. Unfortunately, this turns into a generic, formulaic order of actions that don't really feel like they're that unique at all. They all have their different visuals and do damage, but while playing, it's not like I had certain attacks that felt better for this enemy versus that enemy. I was just spamming them out to either get damage in or try to get an enemy out of the way so I can focus on another. The basic combat itself also doesn't feel as gratifying as it should. There's no real tactile feedback from the combat. It feels very soft, almost like I'm not actually hitting an enemy, but swinging at the air while an enemy takes damage. I'm not expecting some haptic feedback or anything, but just some indication that I'm actually dealing damage rather than just watching a health bar go down. The game also includes a parry mechanic, as most games these days do, and I like how when you hit a certain parry, it does do a cool animation and gives decent damage. They even make it easier on you by letting you enable a slowdown and a prompt that makes your parries easier. My recommendation is you turn it off, but pay attention to where it is in the menus for certain fights later on. Most enemies don't deal a boatload of damage, so if you're missing parries, you can get by without really struggling, but when you get to some bosses, they can really drain your life down in an instant. These are the times where I recommend you turn the slowdown back on, especially because it can be hard to judge when you should parry some bosses. They'll give you a flash to let you know a boss is going to attack so you can prepare to parry, but the issue is that's not when you should hit it. You still have to wait for the boss to almost hit you, and sometimes the boss can leave you standing there after the flash wondering when they're actually going to strike. Sometimes they have a decent windup that fakes you out and leaves you open for a hit. I know this is fairly standard for some games like this, but something about how this game does it just grinds on me a little bit. Maybe it's just one more pebble on an already increasing pile of things that just doesn't sit right with me, or maybe there actually is something different about it, but I'm just not the biggest fan of the combat. It feels like they really wanted to focus more on the flashy visuals and the amount of stuff you can technically do without having the solid, satisfying foundation it relies on. The other positive I can give this game is the amount of content in it. I'm gonna be honest and say I haven't touched the online yet. None of my friends wanted to play this game and I didn't really feel like playing with a bunch of randoms, so I decided to skip out on it for the first impressions. But not even counting the online feature in this game, there's plenty to get lost in. There's a full story campaign you can go through and a plethora of side quests to sink your teeth in. The first thing I wanted to do was fly through story missions because those tend to be my favorite of the game. It's my benchmark for if I finish the game or not, and I think how they treat the story can say a lot about the effort actually put into the content. I really wanted to get it done for this video, but unfortunately, I couldn't. I saw somewhere where they said the single player will take you 150 hours or something like that, and I'm starting to believe it. I started to rush through the story and I hit a part where it told me I couldn't progress to the next mission until I hit a certain level requirement. Now it's starting to make sense why they can boast about having a long story, because they're forcing you to engage with filler content to even be able to progress through it. It's a way to force you to do side content to raise your level instead of actually making them look enticing and making you feel like you should engage with it. Most of the side missions are marked on the map after you pass by them, so it'll be easy for you to find them, and some of them can be slightly interesting. I really like the one where I had to solve puzzles to please the spirit of a blind woman who had died. Unfortunately, some of them can get a little long in the tooth and you'll be waiting for them to end rather than enjoying them. The biggest example of this for me was the one where you had to help guide lost spirits to the afterlife. It was a lot of slow walking and standing still while I'm just waiting to hit level 21 and progress the story. Speaking of it, I've been doing side content for a while now, and I'm still level 20. I can scroll through all the menus I can think of, and I can't find a hint of an XP bar. I just want to see how much longer I have until I can progress. Are you fucking kidding me? I must have spent at least 2 hours dicking around with the side shit, and the ticker hasn't moved a bit. In any other game, I could potentially get 3 levels in that amount of time. So what went wrong? Does this game have an impossible level requirement? No. My issue is when I hit level 10, they threw prompts on the screen that I glanced over and I just held the start button. This brought me to an arena where I had to fight 3 waves of enemies to reach level 11. This is the way the game works. At every 10 levels, they force you to stop your progress so you can have a little arena clash with some goons before you can progress to the next level. So this whole time, I've just been grinding XP for no reason. The worst part is when you actually do it and break the limit, it doesn't give you all the XP you grinded away. Instead, what it does is drip feed it to you at each new level up. So if I got 10,000 XP and then break my limit, it'll do something like give me 2,000 for each level until the backlog runs out. I get that there's nothing wrong with doing it this way, I just don't understand why. Why add a roadblock to progressing in the game like this? I'm sure when I hit level 20, they quickly threw something in the small writing on the left of the screen, but the issue is you could be doing stuff and not necessarily paying attention. And it's not like the game reminds you every now and then to jump into the arena. If you miss it and forget that you have to do this, you'll be running around like an idiot. Unless you happen to stumble upon it, or at least until you get fed up and Google it. I figured it out because I was just trying to find my XP bar in the menus. I'm just wondering if it's to prove you're worthy of leveling up. What happens if I don't beat the waves? Am I stuck at level 20 until I do? I like the little arena area and being able to fight waves of enemies, but if they wanted to include that in the game, just add a coliseum. Ooh, I got sidetracked. Going back to the wealth of content they have in this game, a majority of it is based on these side activities. There's so many, they're separated into different categories in the journal. One of the categories I want to bring up is campaign. If you're like me and you picked up this game without knowing much about it and you're trying to find the next story mission, you might be very confused by how the campaign tab doesn't actually have any of the main missions you were working on. When I first looked at it, I was really confused because despite spending the last hour working on the opening story missions of the game, it said I hadn't done anything. Not only are the story missions not under the campaign tab in your journal, they aren't included under any of the other tabs. They put so many quests in this game that they decided to put them into two separate menus. The one you're looking for to track your story missions is called Quests, which also have their own set of side quests. Some of the campaign quests just so happen to align with the story, while some others are optional. So I guess they do loosely relate to the campaign. It just gets a little confusing at first when you're trying to track everything. While I was doing the endless wait to level up from 20 to 21, I decided to try out the Jianghu Legacy missions because I wanted to see what they were about, and they're honestly a little interesting. All of the quests have to do with developing some part of the lore in the world. Take the first one I purposely chose to do, Blind to the World. It's the one I mentioned earlier. This one is based on the legend of the Moon Goddess. It involves solving puzzles that lead you to the statue of the Moon Goddess and letters that tell you the story of the woman behind the statue and what she wanted more than anything else in the world. This was the type of side mission that was engaging both story-wise but also gameplay-wise, as it involved solving different types of puzzles and gave a much needed break from missions that mostly had you hacking at enemies. It allowed the game to flex its more subtle muscles instead of the flashy effects and moves that I felt the game was using to carry itself until this point, especially since one of my biggest complaints about the game is how boring the main story is. I've invested a decent amount of time into the game. I've made it to the second area and played a couple of missions from there. After all this time, I can't begin to tell you what the story of this game is about. I can only tell you the things I've done, and that's not me saying the game is so complex that it's hard to summarize or I'd have to do a deep dive. It's that nothing in this game really feels connected. I know my Yote first impressions, I said that the game feels like a day in the life of Atsu, but this game literally just feels like I'm living my character's life. Story missions are basically, what is my character doing today? Until some kind of event happens and you just have to deal with that. For example, the first thing you do after the opening is go to town with this girl that I'm not entirely sure who she is in relation to my character. Is she my sister? Cousin? Friend? Niece? I have no idea. They don't really say. After buying some shit with her and interacting with the people in town, you go back to your job and work for a little bit until you have to figure out why you're low on wine, which leads to a crime scene. Then you have to team up with the dude you just heard a legend about, hang out with him for a little bit, then defend the town from an attack. That's basically the first half of the story so far, and not much happens in terms of an overall plot. You do individual things, sure, stuff happens in the game, but nothing really feels like it's building to something like a narrative payoff. Once you reach the second half of the story and reach Kaifeng, it feels like nothing you just did carries over. You meet new people and are dealing with new missions. The best way I can describe this is, it feels like an episodic TV show where you have to deal with the plot of the week, and then by the time the next episode comes, you've moved on to something else. That's not necessarily a bad thing, especially in a game like this where I think it's planned to update the story with new quests as a part of the live service method, but it becomes an issue when the quests you have to deal with just have nothing going on. You're just talking to other characters to set up the very next quest you're going to do, and nothing else. If you aren't interested in the current story or the actions the quest has you doing, then it really feels like you're wasting your time when what happens in this quest never builds up to anything or pays off later in any meaningful way. And unlike an episodic TV TV show, I can't just skip this episode. I have to deal with it. The time I really felt like this was a section with Rose and Killer Blade, where it made me talk to Rose, then walk 20 feet over to Killer Blade, talk to him, then walk back to Rose, who's only 5 feet away, and talk to her again. And for the past 20 minutes, absolutely nothing has been happening. Not even any interesting dialogue or character development. Say what you want about Kojima games having a lot of people talking, but at least the cutscenes are interesting. It feels like the main purpose of the story isn't to tell you a great and memorable tale, but to introduce you to the different aspects of the world and the various activities you can dedicate your time to. The reason I wanted to bring up the Jianghu Legends in the first place was to talk about a quest that was at least a little interesting, and I have to give the game that. It showed me it's capable of giving me something interesting to do. It knows how to tell a compelling story about a character. It just sucked that it felt more like a background thing than being present in the main story of the game, the thing most people will probably interact with. This game really feels like the story isn't the thing it wants you to focus on or coming out of the game thinking about. Honestly, the game feels like it doesn't want you to come out of it at all. I've mentioned how the game has a variety of side activities, but that's only the surface of it. Before moving on to the second part of the story, I wanted to grind out some of the remaining side quests I had just to experience them. I was certainly looking forward to them more than the actual story. I got a decent amount of them done before I decided to progress over to the next section of the game. Since a couple of things I clicked on in the menu said I needed to move to the next area to unlock the quest, I figured now was a good time to head to Kaifeng. After doing the first story mission there, I decided to hop back into the side missions the game gives, maybe finish up the remaining campaigns. That's when I realized this area has its own set of side missions, basically starting all my progress back to zero. This is when I realized I probably wasn't going to be able to finish this game in a reasonable amount of time. There's just too much to do. I haven't even mentioned the mini games yet. There are a few that are pretty standard in terms of games like chess, archery challenges, and fishing. I'm not really going to spend time talking about these, and I didn't play much of them because it's not like the game is going to revolutionize the concept of the mini game. It's still just chess. Plus I suck at chess, so it's one I'd rather avoid. And while some of the minigames can just be boiled down to pressing a button at a certain time, they're still pretty enjoyable to play. The two I always had fun with was Pitch Pot and Graceful Melodies. Pitch Pot is similar to archery in the sense that you have to aim at a target and press a button to hit it, but what I found more enjoyable about it was I couldn't just spam arrows to hit my target or use the Deadeye feature in the game to make it easier. You have one chance to hit the target before it resets and you have to do it all over again. It makes it a little more challenging, and honestly, I like the backdrop of two drunk dudes throwing shit into a pot. It makes the idea of the minigame a little more fun than the generic target practice that's in every game with a bow. Graceful Melodies is a rhythm minigame similar to Guitar Hero or Dance Dance Revolution. It actually looks and feels a little more like DDR by having the button prompts fall from the top of the screen so you can have a little easier time tracking them. It also feels more like DDR from the anxiety attack I have while trying to hit all the notes. My brain just has an issue remembering which finger I have hovering over each button. Again, it's not a reinvention of the gameplay genre, but it's a nice inclusion for those who enjoy it. And with the variety of activities this game has, it seems like it's trying desperately to be a game for everyone. I doubt there's a single person who could pick up this game and not find at least one part of it they enjoy. And for a free game, that's a pretty good feat. All it has to do is have something to draw a player in and make them come back. So the bigger variety it has, the better. I'm just worried that it might come at the quality of certain aspects of it that will hopefully be improved on over time. They can always have time to patch the game with better graphics, and hopefully the future story beats will form a better, more cohesive narrative that really draws people in. They already have a roadmap detailing their plans for adding new areas, bosses, and combat abilities. It looks like they're planning on keeping the game up and running for the foreseeable future, and I really like that. There's nothing I want more than for this game to draw me back in, because I love the idea of having that constantly updating game that I can quickly throw on when I have a break in between games, or I'm just not sure what to play. I haven't found that live service game that totally pulls me in like others have, and I really wanted that to be this game. This is the type of game I would have really loved as a kid, back when I didn't have any money to buy new games and the only time my parents would get me something was either for Christmas or my birthday. But as it is right now, this game just isn't for me. I stopped playing right before writing the script, and I really don't plan on going back to finish the story. I've already started playing some of the games I'm more interested in. This could turn into a Fortnite situation where if I have friends who want to play, I'll join back in with them just to hang out, or maybe enough time will pass that I'll want to revisit it and check out everything that's new. That's what I'm currently doing with GTA Online. Now, would I recommend this game to others? Yeah, I probably would. It's a free game. The only thing you really have to pay with is your time, so if you start playing and it really draws you in, you can choose to make that investment without feeling like you're wasting any kind of money on it. I recommend giving it at least an hour or two to see if you jive with the basics of the game, and if you do, I recommend going out and exploring as much as you can of the main area before tackling the story. That's where the real content and enjoyability of the game is. Even looking online, I see people talking about how much they love the stories of the individual side quests. Only jump into the main quest when you need to progress the story to reach a new area or to unlock more side activities, or if you're just really bored. But if you already have games you own or you're really looking forward to getting and starting a certain game, you should probably play those before you invest your time into this one. One thing I do have to mention though is if you're someone who loves getting the platinum trophy in the game, I would recommend holding off on this one because right now it doesn't look like the platinum trophy is obtainable. I'm looking through the trophy list on PSN profiles, and at the time of recording this, no one has the platinum. It looks like there are some trophies that relate to content that isn't out yet. That does suck a little bit. If you're releasing a game, I think people should be able to platinum it based on the content at release, and any future update should add DLC trophies. It's just another way for them to try to drive you back into the game in a month or say a year. If you guys really want to see me do a trophy review of it, I'll take a crack at it, but right now I just have too many games planned in the pipeline to dedicate time to it. That's basically all I have to say about the game. Give it a try if you haven't. You don't really have much to lose. But what I really want to know is if you guys think I'm wrong. Is there something about this game that I'm just missing? Are you a really big fan of the story and find it engaging? I'd really like to be wrong about it. I hate when I just don't like a game because I want every game to be good. For those of you who really like this game, I'm happy for you. I'm glad that there's a game out there that you really enjoy. Tell me what you love about it in the comments below. Have a great rest of your day, guys, and I'll see you all on the next level. Take care.